For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weissmuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Rooted Podcast. Look, it's getting that time of year. Cold fronts are coming, crisp air, hoodies are on, fireplaces are going, deer are moving, and guess what else is moving? Them ducks. You hear a little bit of then them geese are coming in there just honking away. It's a beautiful time of year. We love it. Big bucks are grunting, mallards are coming into decoy spreads, geese are just flying in and getting obliterated. It's a great time. We love hunting all creatures. But first, Ben, what does the Bible say about creatures?
Well, let's look at what Psalms 104:24 has to say. O Lord, what a variety of things you have made. In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Boom, baby. The Bible says right there, Psalms 104:24, the earth is full of your creatures, and the Lord made them all. In his wisdom, infinite wisdom, he created all things. It says it right there. And it says it in Genesis. It says it all over the Bible about his creation and what he created with these animals. So, we have to take the time to respect that. We have to reflect on that. The deer are not here for us to just go out and shoot. The ducks are not here for us to just go out and shoot the crap out of them for no reason. They're here for us to hunt and eat and feed our families. That is what they are here for. And that's why we do so much work in the off season. It's called conservation, because we are creating the best possible habitat for these creatures that God made to thrive.
Yes, you have to give them the ultimate respect. And that can look a few different ways to some people. So one way may be to maybe get a shoulder mount done, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be one person's way. Feeding friends and family or those in need, which should be, the reason everybody does it. Now, another reason could be what you were doing in Arkansas, and that's called prep work. You're not just going out and, kind of throwing a dart in the dark and hoping that it works. No, it's a very calculated approach that helps us, bag our limit, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah,
now,
hopefully.
What does that look like? That could be brushing duck blinds, right? It could be setting up a deer stand. It could be food plotting. But in Arkansas specifically, what exactly did you get done this weekend to prep for the upcoming duck season that I think is going to be pretty killer from what I'm hearing?
Well, if the numbers are correct and these cold fronts keep happening, I love a good, strong, cold north wind. That means that the ducks are coming. They're on their way. They're going to be here, and we have got water pumping right now. It has been pumping for a while. Some of the holes are already getting water in them. And that's part of the prep work, man. So, obviously this past weekend we were checking spots and mainly brushing blinds. So what do I mean when I say brushing a duck blind? Well, pretty simply put, you're taking brush that you've cut and you strap it to the blind. It's a lot more intricate than that. So you might as well think of it like you're trying to hide from the best eyes in the business from the air. That is what you're doing. So when you brush a duck blind, there's several steps that you need to follow. Number one, you need to look and see what is around that duck blind. Then you need to go and find that same brush, i.e. oak trees, willows, thick grass, whatever it is. You need to go about 200 yards away or further and find that oak tree. But you want to find limbs that are super dense with leaves. You don't want just those scrubby limbs that just have one or two leaves on them. You want that dense foliage on there. And if you cut them in October, they're going to last all season long. The leaves aren't going to fall off. But if you wait until the leaves start dying and falling off, you're going to have no cover. So you want to make sure you cut that brush in October. So that way you have your coverage all season long. So what you're going to want to do, depending on the size of the duck blind, and we'll go into all that here in a minute. We're going to deep dive into this duck blind stuff here in just a minute, John. But
I love it. I love it.
But what we had on this particular deal is floating duck blinds. So basically, you got to think of it like this: when a river comes up and it floods, well, you got to be prepared for that to happen. So if you have stationary duck blinds that aren't super tall, well, they're just going to be underwater. So you have to be ready for that. And man, I've hunted out of these kind of blinds all over the country. In fact, me and you have personally built, painted, and brushed floating duck blinds. In fact, what we did was we used pontoon boats, 20 footers, and I think one was a 30 footer. And buddy, we made Taj Mahal duck blinds out of them that we hauled over to West Tennessee. Oh, dude, you want to talk about nerve wracking hauling a pontoon boat that has a fresh duck blind built on it all the way to West Tennessee, which is about a 2.5 hour drive to where we went down I-40. You talk about drawn up.
Yeah.
Woo-wee.
I'm not going to lie. That's one of the shadier things we've done. I mean, as far as just safety risk, I mean, look, it was totally fine. It's just, you just never think in your life that you're going to be hauling a pontoon boat frame with a duck blind built on it. Mm-hmm. You just don't think that's going to happen. Well, and then next thing you know, you're with your hairy redneck friend going down I-40 West, hauling a duck blind that's built on a pontoon boat, and you're like, all right, well, we're in it to win it now, boys. We better just get now. We're here.
Yeah, so, we're in it. But now,
my goodness.
Let's preface this a little bit. We did strategically place ratchet straps, and we braced the inside, and we left some of the plywood off so that way the air could flow through, and it wasn't just a big old wind sail and could blow off this trailer that was falling apart at the time. So I'm surprised we even made it, to be real honest with you. I just knew that trailer was going to break in half with all that extra weight that we put on there. But it did not. So I'm thankful that it did not do that, because, buddy, we'd have been in a sure enough mess there. But, back to what I was talking about on the brushing side of things, you want to take these limbs. And so when you cut a limb, there's two sides, right? There's a side that the leaves are on, and then there's a side that is just slick. So you want to make sure that you're always putting the side that is slick next to whatever structure you're trying to brush. You don't want to do the other way around, because then all your coverage is backwards. So you want that to be out. The leaves out. Remember that. Leaves out. Second thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you cut enough brush to cover everything. Roof, all four sides, everything. You want that thing to be.
And let me tell y'all, he is not joking.
Oh, no.
He is not kidding. Everything. Boys, I ain't never brushed in a blind. I thought I had. You get in there with old BC, he's got you cutting out a forest for this blind. But by golly, I'll tell you this, it by golly, you hide in there. I mean, as soon as we got this blind in the water that he's talking about, dude, I ain't never seen so many staples and zip ties and cans of paint in my life. I mean, buddy, we were stapling. It looked like we just cut down a tree and stapled it to the blind, and we practically kind of did. And then he just cut out them little holes for the shooting lane, and by golly, popped that sucker in the water. And I think that same evening we shot a duck out of it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we killed birds like the next day, because we had brushed them and then put them in the water. Because remember, we hunted the regular blinds, the other ones that were in there that morning, and then that afternoon we moved those to where we wanted them and ended up shooting ducks out of them that afternoon. But man,
it's awesome.
The point of doing all this is to hide. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and I have a feeling that all the guides out there will agree with me. When you're duck hunting, keep your white face down. Keep it down. Stay behind the brush. It's just ridiculous, because if you're looking out the blind, well, it's just a big old moon sitting there like, hey, we're in the blind today. Or do like I do, take you an old wine cork and set it on fire and rub it all over your face and make that thing just black. And then, guess what? It's okay, because you're starting to blend in a little bit, but you still have to be very mindful of your movements. You have to be very mindful of how you position yourself in the blind. Let me just say this. If the guide says, hey, don't move, the birds are coming, don't move. He's going to call the shot. I promise. You have to trust your
Yeah,
guide
it's gonna be great.
every single time. I've been on so many hunts where the guide says don't move, and we all tucked, and you've been with me. We tucked down, not moving, and then next thing you know, old brother that's four seats down has poked his head out the blind, and well, there flares a 20 pack of mallards, and everybody else in the blind is now aggravated at that guy. He's like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing?" And the guide is
Yeah.
upset because he's tried really hard. He's working his honey off to get those birds to come into shooting range. And then now we've got a big old mess on our hands. But so that's why I brush those blinds so intense. So basically, this
Yeah.
weekend we had 2 trailers, and one of them was like, I want to say 14 foot long. And buddy, we stacked that thing so dense. It was ridiculous. Every blind had a full trailer, a full 2 trailers is what it was. There was an 8-foot trailer and then the 14-foot. A full packed, like so high that the pole saw wouldn't fit on there no more. So that's what it took to brush each blind. And now these are probably, I want to say about 20 to 25-foot blinds that we're dealing with here. Very similar to what me and you dealt with. So you know how much brush that took. I mean, buddy, it was trailer load after trailer load and throwing it on the old duck boat and running in. And that was the other blinds too that were there. We was brushing them too. And buddy, you couldn't see them for nothing. I'm just weird, man.
No.
I get really, really
Hey, there's
weird
nothing wrong with it.
when it comes to brushing a duck blind, man. It has to be perfect. I don't want a duck to see, because what you're basically trying to do is you're hiding this big old box, right? Which brings me to number 3. Break up the hard lines. Don't make
Yeah,
it look like,
no edges.
yeah, don't let it look like a big old brushy box. You want it to be a brush pile. Most brush piles are not square or rectangle. They're just not. They're usually somewhat rounded, heaped up. And if you start on your roof and heap it up pretty good and then work your way down, now that is when you start achieving what you're looking for. And one note that I will say here, when you're brushing the bottom, I would always start with the bottom. Turn those limbs upside down so the foliage is towards the bottom and the actual limb itself is going up towards the shooting hole. But make it that limb level with the blind top, like on the front. You don't want it to be sticking past it, because that's going to be in your way when you're shooting. You want it to be perfectly level with that blind top. And then what you do is you go in and you do the reverse. So you put the foliage up top, and bada boom, bada bing, there you go. It all blends together. It all meshes together. And, after that, you wrap your whole blind, you get it all like you want it. You have to step back about 30 to 40 yards and look at the whole thing. If you see any holes in that brush, go cut more. Go cut little filler brush and jab it in those holes and fill those holes. Yep. And the thing I love about willows is that you can cut the limb and then there's adjacent limbs coming off that the actual leaves are on. So you can put that up there on your corners and it kind of breaks it up for you because it's just kind of hanging there. And then you can fill in to that, but it kind of gives it that round feel instead of it being, all just kind of blocky and stuff like that. So that's what I would do. And I even put those willows periodically in the middle and across the sides and the front. So that way it just kind of gives it that 3D effect instead of just looking like an old bushy square. So that's kind of my step to brushing blinds.
Gotcha. So these blinds here, whenever you're brushing them, I'm trying to remember, did we bought like a thing of wire, right? And stapled that on. That way we had a place to stuff the brush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's 100 different ways to do it. Some folks will use like the chicken wire. Some folks will use the cattle panel wire. Some folks will use like ropes that go around top and bottom. Some people will use wire that goes around top and bottom. So that way you have something to go on. Or some people even use, just wood batting that wraps around top and bottom that you can zip tie to. So there's a bunch of different ways to do that. And I mean, it all works very well as long as you have a good solid anchor point on top and bottom to start your first row. The rest of it just kind of falls into place, and you can get by with using one zip tie or whatever because it's all
Right.
stationed to a solid platform, and not just like
Gotcha.
some old military mesh that's going to break down over the years. You have something that's going to be there for a long, long time and be sturdy and strong. So
Mm.
that's what I would do on that scenario is I would start with the top, zip tie it, go to the bottom, zip tie it. And you don't have to do that on every one, like I said, but that is the base. The base you need to do top and bottom. The rest of them, fill it in, zip tie it where you can.
Now, okay. So let's say, all right, the blind's built, okay, and it's built tall enough or it's on some sort of flotation thing, I guess, right? So it rises. Now, I think something that maybe most people overlook or just don't think about is all right, you got to get to this blind somehow, right? And let's say you
Mm-hmm.
can't walk there, so you got to get in your duck boat.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hide your duck boat?
Well, that's a great point. So you want to adjust those blinds to where you have a hide behind the blind, if possible. So, like where we were hunting over in West Tennessee, we could just pull right up behind the blind there and it was fine because we had all that overhang from the cypress trees. So that would actually hide the
Mm-hmm.
boat for us, which was really nice. And there was a little hole that went into those cypress trees. So we were pretty well covered right there. Now, in open water situations, what you're going to want to do is build a frame that comes down and gives you a place to pull that boat under. And you can even make it to where it floats. You can, dude, it can get as intricate as you want it to get. It can be simple and just have military mesh across it, or you can do probably what I would do. And you know how I am. I go to the 50,000th degree and go in and build a dock that is attached to the blind. You can pull your boat in there and tie it up. You got a full roof, metal roof, brush all the way
Yeah.
around, brush on the top, and then you got this nice boat slip you slip into, and then step out on the dock, then get up in the blind. That's me, but I go above and beyond on duck blinds. I can't help myself.
I love it.
I
Yeah,
just
heck
have to.
yeah.
I have to do it, man. I have to. If I'm going to spend the time to build a duck blind, I want it to be the best I can possibly build with the tools I have available.
Now I've seen some bougie duck blinds,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in some. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I've seen this stuff online where there's couches and TVs and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what that just blows my they got Blackstones in there.
Mm-hmm.
They're just crushing life. And I'm like, what in the world?
So I was actually in a blind in West Tennessee for a youth hunt, and I was calling and all that for these kids, and man, oh man, it was unbelievable. It was a pit. So here in a second, I'm going to go
Mm.
into all the different duck blinds that I use and how they're effective in different scenarios. But this one was a pit blind, which means it is a big old metal
In
container that
ground, right?
is dropped in a hole in the ground and then packed around. Yes. So this one had a full kitchen, a refrigerator, all of it, full
Oh
power,
wow.
propane heaters that were attached to the ceiling. And dude, it was so hot. I was sitting there flipping bacon. Mac, 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 mac. Just flipping that bacon and calling ducks. Kill them, boys. All right, here's your breakfast. And then I was serving breakfast at the same time that they were shooting ducks. And dude, I'm telling you right now, it was frozen everywhere. And that hunt was probably one of the best youth hunts I have ever had with a bunch of kids because those ducks, they had nowhere else to go. This was the only open field because they turned on an ice eater. And let me explain to you guys what an ice eater is. There's some of you that know and some of you that don't. But an ice eater basically creates a current and makes the water stay moving. Well, we all know that fast moving water does not freeze as easy in the climate that we're in. So you can still open up a pretty decent hole right in front of the blind with a said ice eater. So we had the only open hole around, and good night of living, John. Them mallards and pintail were just doing it. I mean, feet down, backpedaling in the spread. It was glorious. Every one of them kids killed their limit. Every one of them got a pintail.
Nice.
Every one of them shot their full limit. And I ain't talking about no little junior pintail. I'm talking about them bull sprigs, big old sprigs on them. I was like, boys, it don't get much better than this. You better cherish this one for a long time, because these are few and far between most of the time. You know, when you come in and everybody gets to shoot a multi-species limit. I mean, that's pretty special, man, because we had, you know, the pintails, the mallards, the wood ducks, we had a couple teal, and we had gadwalls. So, I mean, dude, that's just pretty dang special. I mean, wood ducks, you can pretty well count on shooting a wood duck just about any time you go. I mean, especially in the Southeast. So, I mean, that's just kind of a given. But, dude, it was phenomenal. So, let's dive into different types of blinds. So, we have the floating blind that we've already talked about. That can be done by an array of different methods. You can use a pontoon boat frame, you know, the 2 tunes in the floor, and build up from there. You can use 55-gallon plastic drums. They're filled with air. You can use those. They work. You know, some docks are made with, like for your boats, they're made with these big old plastic container. I don't know what they are, but I just call them floats. But you could use those to float a blind. But you have to make sure that your weight is proportionate on front, back, side to side. So that way you're not cattywampus one way or another, because remember that first blind that we built, we ended up having to put a bunch of weight in where the motor would be to balance it out and make it sit level, because it just was not sitting the way that we wanted it to. It was really nose heavy. And the blind was, I mean, there was no difference in the blind from front to back, side to side. Same amount of wood, same amount of everything, but we didn't factor in the motor and where it would sit and how those tunes are balanced based on the motor weight. So we had to replicate the weight of a motor back there in that little cubby hole. So it worked. I think we put some sand or something like that in there, like big old bags of sand, just shoved them in there, piled them in, and it worked great. It was fantastic. So from the floating blind, you go into the stationary blind, which can be built on 2x4 or 4x4s or 6x6s. That's your base. You know, you drive them down into the mud and build your platform from there. Now, you can make some monstrosities of a duck blind. I started this when I was in high school and then in college. You know Chandler Rowe. Me and old Chandler Rowe built this duck blind. It could have held 20 people in this old cypress swamp. For wood ducks, John, for 2 wood ducks a person. And there was like 4 of us hunting.
Nice.
But we built this humongous blind that wrapped all the way around 2 cypress trees, wrapped all the way around it. And dude, for what? I don't know. I don't know why we did that, because we were in college and we were bored. So, dude, you should have seen us out there on this little 12-foot John boat with a trolling motor. My big old dense butt in there and a load of wood, and Chandler in there too. Buddy, you want to talk about getting nervous on capsizing? That was it. Oh, man, we had like a few inches of freeboard left before we sank that rascal. So, oh, man, we were always doing something like that, and we would make them so big. Good night. And looking back, I'm like, Chandler, why are we making blinds so big? He said, man, I don't know. It just seemed fun at the time. I was like, well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah. So that's the stationary blind. And then you have your mobile blinds. So this is going to be broken down into a few categories here. So you have your A-frame, which is what it sounds like. It looks kind of like an A-frame house with a slot cut out of the top, and you fill that in with grass or whatever's around you right there. The best way to do that is with some hedge trimmers, you know, them electric hedge trimmers, just meow, and cut as much as you possibly can, and quick. Like you have 2 people cutting, 2 people stuffing, and you will get that blind brushed quickly. And same concept as before. You don't want it to look like a square. You want it to be just a big old heap of brush, just a brush pile, and you want it to overlap at the top. You want that brush to intertwine at the top, so when you come out, you can shoot, and then it goes back closed, kind of. But you can still see through it and all that stuff. But man, I have killed so many ducks out of an A-frame, and they're mobile. You can go, and the wind's different on a certain day. Well, you just move to where the wind's right, set it up, go shoot ducks. I mean, that's what I like about the A-frame blind is their portability and their ease of even setting them up is simple. It takes 20 minutes to fully assemble 2 blinds, put the covers on them, and once you brush them once, you don't have to brush them the rest of the season unless you're just touching up and stuff. They're just kind of done. And you roll them back up and put them in the trailer, move on to the next one for the next day or whatever. And then you're going to have your skid blinds. So your skid blinds are just like the A-frame, except most of the time they have a flip front and a top and all that, but it's all wire. So you have your metal frame, and then you have like your hog wire on the back, and that's what you attach your brush to and all that, like similar to what we did. But instead of being stationary or like you can put it together real quick, it's on these skids, like trying to think of the best way to describe this. Like one of those buildings, like you can buy at the store or whatever that you can just move, the portable buildings. Like those 4x4s on the bottom of them are called skids. And that's what you're doing with these blinds is you'll hook them up to a 4-wheeler or side by side and just take off and move it to a different location based on the wind and all that. And it makes it really nice. And in fact, I have one of those blinds here at the house. I just got to put it together, number one, and buy the skid that actually attaches to it because, I didn't do that. So, I left that part off. Whoopsie daisies. But, man. And then you have your layout blind, which is one of my favorite ways to hunt. And you may think, well, you can't hunt a layout blind in standing water. Oh, buddy, you can too. There is a company out there, and I'm not going to say the name because they don't sponsor us, but they make one with legs that puts you right on the water's surface, and the bottom and up the sides is waterproof. So you're not getting saturated, but let's all be straight. If you're hunting water, you're going to have waders on. You're going to be pretty well waterproof. But for us, me and you going out, we got to make sure that we're staying dry for our camera gear and all that good jazz. We got to make sure that we are crispy and clear all the time. Try to keep our stuff as dry and well maintained as possible. But, I love the A-frame or the layout blind. Some people call them a coffin blind, but I always call them, so I call them the layout because you're literally laying there and you have these 2 doors that close over you, and then you pop them open when you're ready to shoot and you set up. So you cover that whole thing in brush, and it's very low profile. So you're not having to brush as much, and you've got that low profile, so it blends in a lot better. You can hunt a lot of different situations, and not have to lug around a bunch of extra gear. You can literally pop these babies down, fold them up, put them in your side by side and go, or put them on your back, tote them in, whatever you want to do, which is pretty nice, pretty efficient. And man, I've killed a bunch of ducks out of them too. Can be difficult to film out of, but it can be done. I have done it. It can be done.
Oh yeah. I've done it too. Not near as much as y'all, but by golly, there was one time in Oklahoma. Listen, sometimes you just have too many big boys and you don't fit in the A-frame. So they put me in a layout blind just a little bit behind, and it was actually kind of cool to watch the footage because it was just cool from a different angle seeing the duck come in and work because whenever it goes behind the blind, like if I'm in there, I can't get that, but I was in the layout, so I could get it all, and then eventually it would work in, and then kaboom, duck down.
Well, there's another way that Ryan taught me about when filming. Throw on a ghillie suit and cover your camera with a ghillie and just sit like on the corner of the blind, not where you're in the muzzle blast or anything like that, but you can sit right up next to the blind and film everything, and you're out and can see and don't have to go through the brush and all that stuff to film it. You're just right there covered up in a ghillie, and you look like a bush yourself. So that's why I wrapped these two camera lenses, so that way this year during duck season we are ready to rip all the time.
We're ready to go.
Oh yeah, they're ready.
Now, I got to ask you about something else duck hunt related here.
Go ahead.
All right. We're talking about all the different blinds and everything like that.
Yep.
Now, how about nature's blind? In other words, you're hunting the flooded timber and you're just leaning up against a tree. What's your what are you looking for? Like, what's the perfect tree? What's the perfect setup for something like that where there's no blind? Really, you're just using nature to blend in there.
Well, a tree big enough to cover my big old densely packed rear end. If y'all don't know this, I'm not the biggest man in the world by any means. So don't even think that I'm trying to say that I'm some big boy like that, like I'm the biggest and the baddest. What I'm saying is that I have a large circumference in the belly, very densely packed, pushing that 300 lb mark there. So I like to find a tree that is big enough for me to lean on and my shoulders don't stick past it. That's what I like to find. Now sometimes that's just, it's impossible, but a lot of times you can find that tree that you can just lean up on. And if it's, if I don't have one that is that big, I'll just turn on my side and lean up with my shoulder and tuck in as tight as I can. Trees with forks in them, those work great too. If they fork close to the bottom, right where the water is, you can kind of tuck in that fork and be pretty well hidden. The number one rule of all this stuff is to not look up. If they see you, because you got to think about this, when a duck is flying over you, they're looking down, and the water is dark, the foliage is gone, so it's like a dark novel. It's weird. So if you have something shiny, they're going to pick up on that right off the rip and see you later, going to the next county or the next blind or whatever. So that's the biggest thing is hide. Don't look up. And if you're with a guide, listen to him. He does it for 60 days a year and has a lot of experience. So you need to listen to what the man says and go from there. But, that's what I would do in a big flooded timber spot. I would get in and find, obviously where the ducks are landing and want to be. That's number one. You want to find the X always. If you're where they want to be, you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get them in there. If you're not where they want to be, but you're real close, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get them in there than you would if you just are where they want to be. And that's kind of the rule of thumb with any kind of hunting, but ducks in particular. And while you're out there scouting, a lot of times it's better if you just kind of hang back with a pair of binoculars or a spotting scope and watch from afar so you don't rustle them up and bust them out of there. And then guess what? They're going to the neighbors. You want them to stay on you as much as possible. Now, sometimes it is just unavoidable. You're going to buzz ducks out of there. It's just kind of part of the gig. But you want to do your due diligence and try your best not to do that as heavily as, just sitting back and watching from afar. That's kind of my advice on that. That's what I would do. I would kind of hang back as far as I can and watch that. And there's one more type of natural brush or blind, if you will. It's called buck brush. Now, buddy, that buck brush you can tuck in and you can pretty much disappear. In fact, me and you hunted it in West Tennessee in that very back spot. We got out and we tucked up against those little trees, and then there was that brush in front of us right there because that old blind that was back there was all rotted out. The floor was bad. It was just a mess. So we ended up just hunting the trees and ended up killing quite a few birds that day. But, buddy, hunting buck brush is hard on your legs and your lungs if you are not in shape for it. Trust me from experience. You want to talk about losing weight and sweating? I've got the perfect workout plan for you. It's called the Wader Edition. Waders and knee-deep mud get you every time.
Yep.
You will burn the calories.
It'll humble you.
Yeah. Yeah, you better bring the little Debbie's. That's all I got to say.
Yeah,
You're
buddy,
going
you gonna need them.
to need them. Yeah, you're going to need them. You are going to need them for sure. No two ways about that. Yeah, buddy.
Well, look, I got one more little thing here that I realized helped us. Now, you don't need the biggest and baddest technology of what I'm fixing to say. You can buy this on Amazon for like $30 and it'll work.
Yep.
But dude, a drone,
Mm-hmm.
if you can fly up a drone and fly over that blind, especially one that you can see live, that helps you a ton. And then
Yeah.
if you can record it, and there's a lot of those out there. You don't need the biggest and baddest. I
Yeah.
literally think, dude, for like $50 you could get one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so what I'm saying is get your blind in there, get it all brushed up. You're where you are where you want to be, and all the ducks are there, yada yada yada. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're wondering if it's brushed good enough, you get that drone up in there, and you literally have the duck's view. That's just a little bit more of an edge that could help for you, and then you can be like, oh man, I need to cover up this edge a little better and round it off, or like, hey, this is perfect, awesome.
Yep. Have
Either way.
nothing else to do. We ready to go. Yep, that's it, man. We are ready to go. Well, brother, I am ready for duck season. I cannot wait. It's going to be an outstanding season. We're going to hit the woods hard, the fields hard. We're going to try our best to hunt as much as possible and bring home as much duck as we possibly can bring home.
And I've also got a couple good, there are actually 3 at the moment, goose hunt spots. I just hunted this new farm. I had permission to hunt. I saw a couple deer far away, but I had like 50 geese in different pairs to fly over me. And I was like, all right. They flew right over the pond that's in there. So, and I've seen them in there. I've seen a group of ducks in there. So I'm like, for basically, East Tennessee right here, this is good. This is gonna be real good. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah,
I can
don't
tell you that
tempt
right
me,
now.
John.
I'm real excited about getting out and honking at them old honkers and quacking at them old duckaloids, man. I'm ready to pitter patter and get at her.
Oh, yeah, pitter patter, get at her, big dog. Well, with that, John, I think we just finished up another episode. So y'all make sure to check us out on all the streaming platforms. Go to rootedtelevision.com, go to shop, and you can get all the swag for the podcast and the show. I am going to build a website for the podcast in the near future. It's not going to be today. It may not even be during this hunting season, but it is coming. So just keep that in mind. We are making steps. We are making progress. So thank you guys so much. Oh, one other thing. Don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, the link in the description is another good way to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. With that, the Redneck is out.
See y'all.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.